And we can see if this all works out. And we can see if this all works out. Make sure we're live on that event. I'll make sure everybody can see our screen. And then we'll go over to something like our email here and bring up a new email that we can create. There we go. I'm gonna hop over to YouTube. Excuse me, make sure we're live. And double check that it appears we are sharing our screen here too. I don't see our live stream here. Stop live stream. So why don't you show up if I'm live streaming? There we go. Okay. Stop live stream. So it looks like we've got our live stream working. And here we are in our Outlook on an iPad. What I want to show you that you can do on the iPad is if I send a note to, let's say, somebody I know, let's do Michael Blumenthal, another Microsoft MVP in Office Apps and Services, and we do iPad keyboard shortcuts for Outlook. One thing that I can do here, once I'm in a text field, like I can see, is hold down the Command key, and that determines what your different Outlook keys are for editing, formatting, and working with Outlook in this particular screen. However, if I go back to like the inbox, so we close our draft there, we go back to the inbox and we hold down that same key, you can see that I have the ability to switch to mail, switch to search, and switch to my calendar by using Command 1, 2, 3, just like on the PC version. And based on those different places in Outlook, I have different shortcut keys that work with Outlook. So you might be wondering, what other shortcut keys, Dan, can we use in the Office apps? Well, I'm glad you asked, because on my iPad Pro with it's a Apple keyboard and trackpad combination, I can do several of these different keyboard shortcuts in the different apps. So PowerPoint has functionality. Let's take a look at demo slideshow. Let's put in my name and MVP. Let's see if we can toss in a design idea or something here. Designer, get creative with the start of my slideshow and then insert a new slide and put in our agenda, iPad keyboard shortcuts. So much easier to type on an iPad than to tap and just use the on-screen keyboard. I could put, we started with Outlook. We're now going over to PowerPoint. And then we'll look at Word, and we'll finish up with Excel. And our bonus app will be Microsoft Teams. So there we go. We've got our new slide for Outlook. Could put in a placeholder there for PowerPoint. And maybe even create and take a screenshot of the shortcut keys. And then insert photo and our photo from PowerPoint, then insert new slide. We're going to move on to Word, then new slide, Excel, and then our bonus app for today is going to be Microsoft Teams. So there we've got our slides, and we could either put words in the slides, we can insert photos, whatever we want to do. But we have our different slides. We have our different keyboard shortcuts that we can document there and toss into our PowerPoint photos. Pull that one in. And then under Word, we could go over to our apps that are running on our Mac. And you can see here in Word, I have a whole list, and I developed this yesterday to come up with what are all the keyboard shortcuts that work in Word. And so I went down the alphabet using the Command key, which is that weird squiggly character on a Mac or a iPad keyboard. And you can see most of the keyboard shortcuts involve that key. Some involve the Shift key or the Option key. And from a perspective of the symbols on those keys, Apple uses those symbols to help, so they're not using CMD and Option and Control as words. They're using the symbol that is along with those key combinations on their keyboard. So I don't think I'm sharing my screen anymore. Let's go ahead and share content again, screen, and tell Zoom to show you all this goodness that I'm looking at. So here we have our iPad in Microsoft Word, and our Word application shows several different keyboard shortcuts. You have to be in an area where the keyboard is active. That's the other thing I found. I didn't think there were any keyboard shortcuts to use in Microsoft Teams, because when I first pressed and held down the Command key, I didn't see anything as options. So I was like, well, therefore there are no keyboard shortcuts in Microsoft's Teams for iPad. I was sorely mistaken. So similarly, if I go into the Excel application and I start typing some values, and then I hit Command A, we can see that it's highlighted everything, or it's selected everything in my spreadsheet, which is what we would expect from a Control A or a Command A. That is the select all keyboard shortcut. So if I hold down the Command key, now we see several different Excel keyboard shortcuts. And so the benefit to these places in the app where you can actually type is when you use the keyboard and hold down that Command key, you see what your options are for the application. So for instance, let's do our bonus application, Microsoft Teams, one of my personal favorites, and one that I had reached out on the feedback portal to say, hey, in the same way that I'm using keyboard shortcuts in Outlook and Word and Excel and PowerPoint, it would be really handy to have those same keyboard shortcuts available in Microsoft Teams. Because what I realized was I'm holding down the command key on my Mac right now and nothing's happening. However, if I go to a chat and I go into one of the text fields, notice that there are a number of Teams shortcuts. If I can get to that screen here. And take a picture of it successfully. Got to hold two things down at once, which is a little tricky. There we go. Nope, I still didn't get it. Let's see if I got it in my other screenshot. I bet I did. Yep, there we go. Okay, so we'll save those photos and then we'll go back over to Microsoft PowerPoint and we'll copy the photo that has the keyboard shortcuts listed for Teams. So you have to be in a screen. Tips. You have to be a screen where you can type or where a keyboard shortcut would be active. So our example of a place where you can type is Teams equals chat or Teams channel conversation. Either of those places, you have the ability to use the keyboard or the on-screen keyboard. Then when you hold down the command key, the CMD key will see the different commands. Within Teams meetings, we can use the command plus shift plus M, which equals mute, unmute. And so these are some of the keyboard shortcuts that I have discovered in my iPad. And fortunately, before I started complaining too loudly about the Microsoft Teams not having keyboard shortcuts, I discovered it also has keyboard shortcuts, just like Outlook and PowerPoint and Word and Excel do. I haven't tried this in some of the other Microsoft applications. For instance, there is a OneDrive app and an Office app. So if I go into the Microsoft Office app, the nice thing about this new app is it's designed to kind of bring all of Office together under one application, as opposed to a separate app for Excel and a separate app for OneDrive and a separate app for PowerPoint, et cetera. The difference here might be that if I'm telling it I want to create a form or I want to rehearse with Coach, which would be a function of PowerPoint, or I go in to create a new file or open a file that I've already worked on, these files may have specific ways that they work with the apps. So in this case, I'm in the Office version of PowerPoint, and I have a single slide. I'll put 2 slides in here, and then we'll tell it that we want to go into slideshow mode from the start. I'll hold down the command key, and you can see here that I do have some edit options that I believe are coming from the iPad specifically, not necessarily the application for PowerPoint. And I do really want to try my favorite PowerPoint trick to see if it's working. And that is the ability to navigate a slideshow with the number of the slide. Oops, I don't want to do a comment here. I want to do a new slide. I'm going to call this slide 3. And a new slide, and let's call it 4. And then what you can do typically in PowerPoint is when you're in slideshow mode, you can actually hit a number and enter, and you should be sitting on that slide. So I could hit 1, enter, and I should be sitting back on slide 1. It looks like that has not been implemented on the app version for PowerPoint with the keyboard, but that is probably my favorite Microsoft PowerPoint tip that I have not seen well documented, but I discovered at some point as a technical trainer. So it was super helpful to realize that I could go ahead and use that keyboard shortcut within PowerPoint. Let's see if I can get my video working here again, along with my screen sharing. Okay, so it looks like it is, but I don't see it on the screen. There it is. Nice. Okay, so now I have it on the screen too. So that's a little bit about what I've done with different things in PowerPoint. I'm working on documenting these things with my colleague over at the Microsoft Speakers Club, Micah Hansen. So I can list Microsoft Speakers Club contributor and marketing. And then this PowerPoint becomes something that we can actually work on together. The nice thing about that is if we're trying to do some designer enhancements to make this a little more engaging, we could go through these slides, click designer, and get some different ways to maybe visualize the changes that we're seeing here within the applications. And so you can also do things like bring in other types of art. I could do drawing on my slides since I'm on an iPad and I've got an Apple Pencil somewhere. I could use my Apple Pencil or my finger to draw on my slides. And that would be one additional way to go ahead and animate or bring some additional visual into my slides. So I could go ahead and draw on these slides and have something a little more personalized in my message. Wow, that says wow, not now. Kind of looks like now. So I didn't make my W as pronounced as maybe I should have. There we go. Now it looks like wow with a bent line. But you get the idea. We can go into our PowerPoints. We can jazz them up with the designer under the design tab on iPad. And then we could do other types of things with our slide content. Once I have my slides at a point where I want to share them, I can click on the share, send a link to this, iPad shortcuts, save these to my OneDrive, and then save that up to my OneDrive storage at DESA Enterprises. And that brings us to the end of our PowerPoint and iPad tips for this Tip Tuesday. We are live on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, we're live on our app, which is YouTube. And that is because my iPad does not support directly connecting to LinkedIn. However, Zoom on my PC or my Mac allow me to stream directly live to LinkedIn or YouTube or several other online sources. So it looks like the iPad, the only option for streaming is YouTube directly. However, I'm also recording this so we can repurpose the recording and put that recording live on LinkedIn at some future date. That also would allow us to incorporate some feedback and tips and tricks from Micah in our LinkedIn Live version of this same information. So I will go ahead and end our recording here and our live. I wish you a happy Tip Tuesday, and I'll see you again for Tech Thursday.